a cool spring day in Yellowstone National Park, tourists from around the world gather for a rare glimpse of America's national mammal, our last wild bison. But this pastoral scene doesn't tell the full story of the Yellowstone bison. Beneath the surface is a much more grim reality the bison face each year as they migrate outside the safe confines of the park. A reality largely obscured from public view.
My name is Mike Meese. I am the campaign coordinator and co-founder of the Buffalo Field Campaign. And I've been living in this ecosystem and fighting against the abuse of our sacred wild buffalo since April of 1997. In that year, the combined efforts of the United States Park Service and the Montana Department of Livestock, they killed 1,083 buffalo.
In 1995, the Montana legislature changed management authority over wild buffalo from the Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to the Montana Department of Livestock.
It's the fox watching the hen house. These guys can do whatever they want, and they're doing it at the expense of this ecosystem.
The limitations of the plan are that every agency has different values for preserving wild bison. And the National Park Service has gone to great lengths to restore wild bison on the landscape we have jurisdiction for. The other agencies involved have limited wild bison restoration beyond the national park boundary.
Each winter, like all wildlife in the ecosystem, a portion of the Yellowstone bison herds migrate out of Yellowstone Park onto nearby public and private land. But the bison are not generally welcome on the thousands of acres of public land surrounding the park. The reason being, livestock producers have maintained, contrary to the scientific evidence, that bison will transmit a disease called brucellosis to domestic cattle. This has given the Montana Department of Livestock license to round up, capture, and slaughter thousands of bison.
In that year, they estimated the herd lost between 600 and 800 to natural death. And so in 1 year, 2/3 approximately of the entire last wild buffalo we have left in the world were killed.
In an ideal scenario, the National Park Service would not have a trap to trap bison at the park boundary. We would allow populations to migrate in and out freely across the landscape, and bison, in theory, could function the same as deer and elk, grizzly bears and wolves, other native species to the area. But because of litigation brought against the National Park Service, we have a settlement agreement with the state of Montana to collaboratively minimize the number of animals that migrate outside the national park.
On January 12, 2006, the Montana Department of Livestock hazed 48 wild bison across thin ice near West Yellowstone.
I remember the incident well. We've argued with them over the years that there are multiple ways to move animals on the landscape, and there are low stress and high stress type ways to move animals, and that was certainly a very high stress method of moving the animals.
14 broke through the ice. 2 drowned. This incident created controversy in the Yellowstone community. If the agencies managing the bison had been equipped with the proper knowledge, some, including experts, believed the lives of the bison on the ice that day may have been spared.
We did not condone that type of movement. We even argued that it may not have been a necessary movement.
We need to have a front lines presence here. We need to keep these agencies in check and liable for what they're doing.
When bison migrate outside Yellowstone, large numbers are forcibly removed and returned to the park. This process is called hazing. The bison are run for miles and miles across difficult terrain. They are chased through fields, rivers, and forests, driven from behind by state livestock and federal agents, and from the sky by low-flying helicopters. Among the herd are babies and pregnant mothers.
Give that baby a break, man!
None are spared.
One of the first things I learned is that if you have a video camera, you really control the mood and atmosphere of how these buffalo are treated. As soon as our video cameras are turned off, you'll see them pick up the haze, be a lot meaner to these animals. But as long as we're documenting them and keeping them liable, then you see them tame their actions and calm down a bit. And so, to me, that was the reason we started this campaign.
Break. Southbound 191, Mark Point, Copper Creek.
Members of Buffalo Field Campaign prepare to document a bison haze. Cameras in hand, they will chase the hazing efforts by car and on foot, documenting the treatment of the buffalo and transforming the haze into a public event.
Oh my God, you're going to jail.
Their footage will be shared on social media and local and national media outlets, at outreach events, galas, road shows, and on Capitol Hill. As one Buffalo Field Campaign member put it, with anyone who will listen. In April 2016, 200,000 acres of public land near the west entrance of Yellowstone on the Horse Butte Peninsula were secured as year-round safe habitat for the buffalo. Still, each year, hundreds of bison are rounded up and placed in the Stevens Creek capture facility residing inside Yellowstone Park, where they await quarantine or slaughter.
When I went to the capture facility again this year for probably like my 8th or 10th time doing that, I mean, there is no nice way to try and domesticate wild animals, to put them in steel cages, to run them into squeeze chutes. It's horrible. You put me in a cage and I'd rather die. Nature is a beautiful thing. And the beauty of it is we have no control over it. Until we can forge that relationship to understand that that inherent value is important, then I think we're going to always run into these brick walls because people are too scared to let wild things be wild.